Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to Linux Action Show episode 420. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey there, Noah. Guess what? Huge show today. So you heard the news. Nextcloud. What the heck is it? Well, it's a fork of ownCloud. We'll tell you what went down with ownCloud, what the heck Nextcloud is, because we're going to have Jos and Frank join us to answer our questions. We've been getting a bunch of questions into the show, too, and we'll throw some of those towards their direction. But that doesn't mean there's not news to cover. In fact, there's several big stories we'll be talking about in the news segment. And the feedback segment, I'm going to cover probably something that upset most of you last week. I'm guessing, just based on the feedback. I'll respond to that. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we've got?
The picks!
We've got the picks. We have got the picks this week. And this is a fun one because I'm at home last night, working like just like a son of a gun on this show, slaving away, Noah, and I get this text message from you. And
while I was working.
Actually, I don't know if people know you do this because you're not partying. I'll play it for you, but here, I'll show people what I'm talking about. I get this message. And I'm like, what's he doing right now? So explain to people what they're seeing. No, what are they seeing?
So basically what we do is, one of the things that Altispeed does is we provide installation, structure, wiring, all that kind of things. Well, that has led to installation of PA systems and light systems and stuff in fraternity houses and event venues. And of course, that then led to actually running that stuff. And of course, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it on Linux.
That's right.
And so, so basically what we've done is we have three computers, and there's a short video clip.
All right, so here's the rundown from Noah on location.
Control computer. This is running 1204, and basically, if we set on with the spacebar.
Are you gonna get me pulled down for country music, dude?
Spacebar.
I don't know. Will it hear that?
Yeah, it's gonna hear that.
After that set, it gets set in here. Then it keeps that.
That's pretty cool. So you're using the UI to control the lights. I'm turning it down so maybe hopefully YouTube is graceful for us.
Well, so basically that front computer, basically every light in there, including the strobes, and there's a bunch of little cans, they're all addressed and then added into that Linux computer. Then this one is actually the audio computer that is, of course, running mix, and I'm able to switch back and forth. Obviously between music, and that's actually paired to a hardware controller that sits underneath the computer itself. So, it's a little dark. You can see the play button illuminated, but basically
I like hardware controls. That's nice.
Yeah, hardware controls are great and a necessity. And then, of course, over here, I've just got a tiny little laptop running Ubuntu Mate for obtaining new music through Amazon, which they kindly let you just download anything and then pay for it once, and then you just own it. But the thing is, what has gone to my head was, last night I had so many people coming up to the booth, and they're looking at it and going, "Oh, this is amazing. Oh, this is incredible. How is this working? How are you doing that? How are you doing this?" And one guy tells me, he goes, "We paid," and then he gives me the amount of money, and he's like, for this DJ, and he had like this fancy Mac thing and all of these special controllers and this super special hardware, and it didn't work half this good. And I'm like, yeah, so you know what? You people with your stupid, fruity computer that are walking around, hipster-loving goobers.
Wow, yeah, okay.
Go stick your MacBook in your ear. I can do that on Linux.
Wow.
I just get so happy when I can do something just as well on Linux as you can do on your piece of crap with iDJ or whatever you call it.
By you, you're not referring to me, by the way. I want to make that clear.
No. The other DJ,
the mythical hipster who's challenging you with their shiny MacBook. That person.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That guy.
Gotcha.
That guy can go stick his MacBook in his ear.
Mix, by the way, super solid software, even if you just want to have a little music at home. I like that wedding, though. First of all, it's my kind of wedding because the track that apparently he was playing is called something My Country Ass or something like that. I didn't see the track.
Kiss My Country Ass.
Yeah, Kiss My. Okay. And you got to run Linux at an event like this because uptime apparently matters. So at 1:30 a.m. JB time, which was what, 3 in the morning?
3:30.
Yeah, Grand Forks time. Noah sends me this clip here.
People are nuts. It's literally pouring rain. Pouring rain. Dance floor is soaked. There is no top. on that little problem.
I love that. No, so that's pretty cool. I won't play the whole clip, but that's.
And then the last thing that was kind of cool about that event was we get out there and there is no cell reception, like none, right? And so, I need internet to be able to download music. Not to mention, I'd like to just not be online.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, y'all have an internet connection? They're like, yeah, they actually just buried fiber. I'm like, great, I'm going to steal a run from that. And so we strung a big cable out into the middle of this outdoor venue and just strung a thing in the tree and threw an access point up there, and boom, instant networking.
That's nice. 911 Wi-Fi. That's pretty good. So sounds like it was a good event, and I had no idea you were such a DJ. You apparently got skills. You should come out here and do some mixes.
You should watch the Linux Action Show, because I believe we did an entire episode on this.
I'm teasing. Well, I'm trying to give you a hard time. You should come out here and do some mixes on the live stream.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on. Where's your skills, Noah? Let's hear your skills. All right. Well, we have, so that's a pretty fun Runs Linux, and we have a really cool desktop app pick that's sort of, I would say, kind of on point for today's episode of the show. We're going to be talking about Nextcloud in a moment, and our app pick is somewhere in between, and you don't need a solution quite as large or encompassing as ownCloud or Nextcloud. And it's something you might still want to host yourself, since a big initiative we have on this show is having your own data, protecting your own data under your own control with your own root access. And that's really one of the things that makes DigitalOcean a perfect fit with our show. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider that makes it super fast and intuitive to spin up your own Linux rig or FreeBSD rig on their great infrastructure. In fact, they just launched a new data center in India, but let me tell you a little bit about the basics. In less than 55 seconds, you're going to get started. That's incredible, spinning up a server in less than 55 seconds. Think about what that means for when you're just trying something over and over again. You want to destroy it and spin it up again. You want to destroy it and spin it up again. In less than 55 seconds, you can have a $5 a month rig with 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, because they is all SSDs, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. Think about that. That for $5 is great. Plus, you combine that with their amazing intuitive interface, their great API, where there's already a lot of really solid open source code written around that API, some that we've written ourselves and some that DigitalOcean has written. And when you use our promo code, here's the thing, all one word, lowercase, put it together like you're slurring it, you get that $10 credit. You try that $5 rig 2 months for free. Also, they still got their block storage. Sign up, and they got data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Germany. Up there in Canades, they got it in Toronto. And like I mentioned, they got it in India now too. Check them out. DigitalOcean is a great place to go to spin up your own rig or to spin up an entire application stack. You want to try out Nextcloud? You want to try out ownCloud? Deploy it on a DigitalOcean droplet. Take advantage of their snapshots. Take advantage of all of the incredibly, really well-written documentation. See, that's something that's really unique about DigitalOcean too, is they've really invested in their documentation with staff and with their community. It's really kind of an exceptional deal. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code Here's the Thing. That supports the show and gives you the $10 credit. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring Linux Action Show for episode 420. Now, Noah, you and I have, over time, although you're way worse about it than me, which just gives me lots of tickles, have fallen into the Evernote trap. And it's got you.
What do you mean I'm way worse about it than you?
You're so hooked into Evernote, dude.
I haven't touched Evernote in 2 months.
2 months, dude. You got like 10 years of history in Evernote. You got like,
yeah, that's true.
Evernote is like your.
It came out. I've not logged into it once.
It's like Doctor Who in your Evernote. You walk into that thing and it's way bigger on the inside. It's crazy. So I have to help you. It's my mandate while you're in this Evernote hiatus to swoop in and stop you from relapsing. And so, to that end, I present you Turtle, Turtl at turtl.it. Turtle lets you take notes, bookmark websites, and store documents for sensitive projects. From sharing your password with your coworkers to tracking research on an article you're working, Turtle keeps it all safe from everyone but those you share it with. And it's available for GNU/Linux, 64-bit and 32s, Windows x64, macOS, Android, but not for iOS. So I thought you'd like it for that reason too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always like it anytime we can screw Apple on something. But here's the problem. Are we you're not actually trying to get me off of Simple Note, right? Because I just got done moving my whole freaking life on Simple Note.
No, however, there's a lot of people that watch the show that are not happy with Simple Note's back end.
Oh, yeah.
And I think,
yeah, that's true.
But they still want something like Evernote. I don't really think Simple Note is really an Evernote replacement either. I think if you only really used Evernote for notes, it's totes Evernote's for notes. It's totes a replacement.
use
However,
Evernote for?
dude, one of the best features of Evernote is when I'm on the road traveling, I can take pictures of signs and it OCRs and GPS tags it, and then I can that could, like the picture or business cards. I was taking pictures of business cards in Evernote before there was ever scannable or ScanBot.
I just use I have a Telegram group for that.
I don't. Can I take them? Am I allowed to step off camera and compose myself?
OMG, OMG, OMG.
I don't know what to do. Oh, you know what I can't. No, I literally I can't right now. Okay.
If you think I'm kidding, I'm not.
I know you're not. That's why I can't. I can't with you right now. Okay. I'm in the middle of a show and I just can't. All right. Okay. Noah. So, maybe Turtle would work for you actually. So there you go. Check it out. It's an Evernote killer and it's totes free. So when you're making your notes, you don't have to worry about it. I did read into their future funding about it. They have a premium tab here, and I kind of like the way they write this. I think this is kind of the way to do it. They say the Turtle service is free, and in most cases should work for most users. However, beginning soon, Turtle will launch a premium service that will include more storage and unlock various features in the Turtle apps, which I think that's legit. I think that's pretty legit. Mm-hmm. Also, they say if you want the total freedom and security of Turtle without paying us, you're more than free to run your own Turtle server. So they make it clear right there on that page still. So they say, hey, it's free right now, but at some point we're going to have to make money to stick around. But you don't got to worry about it. You could always run your own server. Mm-hmm. I respect the hell out of all of that. So I think
that's really cool. Does it do collaborative editing?
It does. I don't know if it does real time, though. I don't know about that.
Okay.
That would be huge.
Well, because that's the only real problem I've had with Simple Note is using it in collaboration mode with you is because sometimes things don't quite sync up, and that has literally caused a point where we had two entirely separate shows when we came into the studio on Sunday.
Yeah. Not today, but in the past.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so I have a feeling that you may have a solution for those of us who have looked at the Hughes lights and those types of things that are, Internet of Thing type devices that you can control from your Echo. But it turns out Internet of Things
Thank you for phrasing it like that.
You're welcome. Internet of Things came to Linux a long time ago with Q Lite Controller Plus.
That's right. So Internet of Butt sucks, and you should never do any of that. So if you want to connect, if you want to go and spend a lot of money on an LED light that you screw into a light socket, and then you have to the Hughes are probably the wrong thing to pick up because you don't actually have to activate those with the Philips site or anything.
You can manage them over Wi-Fi if you want.
Yeah, okay.
That's what
that's probably a bad example. But if you take all of these devices that are coming out, like the doorbell thing
Ring.
and the little drop cameras and stuff like that, all of those internet connected crap that you have to rely on some back end service to do, you actually don't need any of that, and it's particularly useful if you want to make programs up that for example, follow music. And QLite Plus is actually, or QLC Plus, I think, is actually a program that spun off of the original Q-Lite controller. But basically, they have added a bunch of really useful things, including a tap to sync. So I can tap on the space bar and sync. And you saw that back in the Runs Linux segment. But basically, I was explaining on the pre-show how much I like modular systems. And so the advantage of something like this is anything that is DMX addressable is compatible with the QLC Plus software. And so basically I can buy cheap little $15 light cams and put them in and get started. And then as my budget increases, because when you look at small business, the lowest entry point means the lowest cost means a wider spread, and a wider spread means a wider return on interest. And so the less money I can spend to get started, the better. But maybe as I'm growing and I decide, well, I want more features, or I want more channels, or I want, this, that, or the other, then I can buy upgraded lights. And because it's just a modular system, I can unplug the inexpensive lights, plug in the more expensive lights, and everything in QLC Plus will work awesome. And previously, I actually had to point this out. I was running this, if you notice, on 1204, and it was running fan-freaking-tastically on my on 1204. I realized I do.
You would make such a good Debian stable user.
I know. Maybe I should check it out. But it is a hardware appliance to me. I install the software and I open the software up when we do these events. I use it and then I shut it back up. They do now, because previously they didn't. They do now have it updated for the latest versions of Ubuntu. So it is available on 14.04, and I just tried it this morning on 16.04. We have linked in the show notes a USB dongle that you can use that is natively compatible with Linux. So you literally plug it into the USB port and it works. Now, I have had the construction quality of these USB dongles is not the best. It's okay if you have it in like probably a club venue, something like that. But if you're like us and you're taking it on the road all the time, they tend to take a lot of abuse. So I have just ordered a more expensive professional grade USB controller, and I didn't have time to put it into practice because it didn't actually come until late last night. But I was playing with it before the show, so I could give you some updates on it. I did get it to work. It just takes a little bit of tweaking. So once I have that nailed down and I can replicate it and I make sure it works well and works with everything, we'll probably do an update and I will give you a short little how to get that working. And because the quality of construction is just a lot better. But if you need something, if you just want to get started, and it's not terribly expensive, I think they're like $28. We have that linked in the show notes.
I like too that they specifically seem to be targeting the Raspberry Pi to some degree to really make this like an Internet of Things type solution. So I look at this and I think this is probably not a Hughes-like competitor like you're saying. If you want something dumb, simple that just use an app, this probably isn't your solution. Then again, if you have a few lights, you want to sync them up to music, you have even a home theater room, or in maybe our case, you're on location, say at Linux Fest Northwest, and you want to add some color to the wall behind you. This kind of this is killer, Noah.
Yeah, and so what I did was I put a couple of these in my basement in my workroom, and so basically I can set the mood or whatever to whatever color I want, or I can hit a button, they all turn white. And so yeah, it's been really cool to play with, and I have my eye set on a really cool toy that I'll show you sometime when we're not on the air. And maybe that, because you never know. It could be something might be useful for a certain event coming up maybe next week.
I follow you. Shh. Don't tell him about the anniversary. Don't tell him about the anniversary.
Okay, good. Nobody will ever figure out. Okay.
Mom's the word.
The math.
Mom's the word. All right. So that's cool. Looks like it's QLite Controller Plus, and the website is qlcplus.org. And they have the Raspberry Pi information over there as well if you actually wanted to go and roll your own Internet of Things solution that wasn't over the internet. What a concept. You know what? We should coin a new term. LAN of Things, right? I got it. It's LOIT.
I can shorten that up for you.
Okay.
Logical.
Local objects.
No, you don't have to think about it any more than that. Just logical. It is logical just to keep everything right in your house. Doesn't need to go out to the internet. If you don't have to forward a port on your router, pass something intentionally through your firewall to your device, you're doing it wrong.
Okay. All right, there you go. So it's just simply logical. Can't argue with that, Noah. All right, so if you want to see our past picks, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks, LAS picks, not last, but LAS picks, right? That's crazy. It might be out of date, though, so if you want to help us update it is a community project to keep that list current. But with the picks all done, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Everybody, wants to go to last.ting.com, las.ting.com to save yourself some money and support the show. You get $25 off your first Ting device or $25 in service credit if you bring your own device, because here is the cool thing about Ting. No contract, no early termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. Minutes, messages, megabytes. Girl, that's all you pay. It's ridiculous. Plus, Uncle Sam's going to get his cut because he gets his cut of everything. Have you noticed that? I have. I've noticed it so much, Noah. That Uncle Sam. But you know what? What's Ting going to do? You know what? They get it. You want to operate in our area? You got to do this. So Ting, they do it. But it's actually really simple. They break it all out for you, make it easy to understand. Everything about Ting is simple. It's just your usage. $6 for your phone line, and that's it. You got 10 lines. This is a great way to go. In fact, statistically speaking, if you have more than 10 lines, ain't nobody going to beat Ting. So that's great for small businesses. But if you got a family and just want to give somebody a line to use from time to time, Ting is great for that. And you know, one of the other great things about Ting, they got real human beings that answer the phone. I love that about them. They've doubled down on their support there, which I think is great. Especially as they have expanded, because they have GSM and CDMA. There's lots of coverage and lots of devices, from really low-end like feature phones that just make, you know what, this thing called a phone call. I don't know. I don't do those. But some of you out there need something like that. And those feature phones are like under $100 with no contract, and you only pay for what you use. Mind blown. And then it just steps its way up from there, all the way up to the highest end devices you can buy directly from Google Play if you want, or just grab a $9 SIM. Make sure it's got the right bands, pop it in there, and you'll probably be good to go. And you know what else? They have a fantastic community around Reddit, YouTube, their own forums, plus their community service and the outreach they do. It's a great company backed by 2Cows. Go check them out. Just go to last.ting.com. And then once you get yourself a fancy new device, perhaps an internet phone or perhaps one of those Google Freedom devices, you might want to try loading a couple of apps that Noah and I are going to recommend. Noah, you got a game that somebody can load on their newly minted Ting phone. It's called Brain It On.
Yeah, so I've been looking for a way to kill time as I found myself in a variety of highly boring situations.
Like
and
airports.
It's a physics game. Basically, you draw an object, and the object weighs the same amount. And so, if I draw more of an object up at the top, it's going to weigh more. And if I draw that object, I can make a fulcrum or whatever. And then the idea is that you solve a series of puzzles. So tip a glass over, or knock a hat off of a little thing, or get that ball to touch the bottom of the floor. And basically,
I love this.
It is. It's pretty neat, and you have a certain amount of time to complete it, and you have a certain amount of objects that you're allowed to draw. And so it's a great way to kill a lot of time. And the nice thing is because it's a lot of simple puzzles. I get bored really easy if it's some like complicated thing I have to sit there and figure out. But when it's something simple and I can just kind of like zone out, it's great.
I love that. So I want to talk about something I've been using. It gets lighter out, past past 9 o'clock now. And I'm trying to get my sleep back on track. So I've gone to bed recently kind of early. And one of the things that I found was kind of difficult was just fully zoning out. And so I have this really nice app that I use to track my sleep. It works perfectly with my LG Watch R. It tracks my movement and my heart rate all night long. And then Sleep as Android, the app, tracks my audio blips, the weather, the temperature, all of the information it can get from the sensors. So I have a holistic picture of my sleep conditions every single night so I can see how I'm trending, and it gives me long-term stats. That's not my pick, though, but that's Sleep as Android. It's awesome. This next pick, I think, comes from the same group, and if not, it works in hand with Sleep as Android. Really cool. And it's called Mindroid, or Mindroid, however you want to say it. And it is an audio-visual simulation device. I don't really like their video because I think it overplays the visual aspect of it because it even works with cardboard. But what I really love about this is it's able to simulate some interesting binaural beat sounds. And if you're not familiar with binaural sounds, it's worth looking into. But it's a way that it's certain sound wavelengths that sort of soothe your mind to go to sleep. You can believe it or not, but it's nice to have. And what this application does is it combines it with any other background sound you want to combine it with. I'm a huge, huge nerd. I mean, you could do like farm sounds like sheep or a river or birds. Not Chris, though. I chose the Starship mode. It has a frickin' Starship modes with small little Starship sounds in the background. And it combines...
That's totally you.
Yeah, dude. And it combines binaural beats with the sounds of a starship. And I can set it to run for a certain amount of time, and then once it wraps up, and it has visual components too, but I'm only using the audio components. Once it wraps up and it finishes, because it does a nice ramp process, it intelligently ramps it to try to make it soothing. Once it's done, it automatically starts my sleep tracking app. So it's really cool. And they have different modes, so I use it for sleep, but they also have relaxation and meditation mode. And it's fascinating, and I think it's free. Let me see. I already installed it, so I don't think it's going to show the price. Do you know how to show the price if you already have something installed? Anyways.
I don't, but I was going to look it up because I was going to get it. It's free,
and then the Pro version is $299. And it really works best with headphones. I, however, because I also am having some ear issues, am not using my headphones. I have put it just on a really nice speaker set. And one of the things that I found that it does, the Starship mode with binaural beats, is it fills the room with audio. When you close your eyes, it makes the space feel huge, which is a neat trick when you live in an RV. So you close your eyes and you feel like you're in a ginormous, ginormous space. And I have found it to be very pleasant. So it's Mindroid.
Now here's a question for you. Does it require the internet to work?
No.
Okay.
No. Out there, dude, I can't use anything that requires the internet. That's a no-go zone for me. I really appreciate the way it integrates with my sleep tracking application, but you can also use it completely standalone. You do not need to have one or the other. But if you do want a great sleep tracking application, Sleep as Android, and it integrates really well with wearables, which gives you an extra level of exact, precise measurement, because there's a lot of sleep tracking apps out there for your phone that track like movements, or when they'll put you put it on the bed and it tracks when your bed moves. But if you have a significant other in bed with you, every time they move, it picks that up too, and it throws off your stats. So have something tied to your wearable, especially ones that have heart rate monitors, actually gives you some really fascinating data. It's a really cool area to explore, and these are all available for Android. And there are some other out there for iOS, including one that's just a Star Trek background noise generator. If you just want Star Trek noises, that's available for iOS. But Brain It On is Noah's physics game, and Mindoid, or Mindroid, is my
They
pick.
pronounce it Mindroid.
Yeah, I would think
This is my app. That's what I would call it, Mindroid.
Mindroid, but then there's only one D.
Yeah.
So it's like a mind with hemorrhoids. Anyways, this is what so you asked me about the internet connectivity. You know, one of the things I really appreciate about Ting is legitimately where I live is the boondocks. If you've been watching the live stream, I was showing some video footage of it. It's a forest on the edge of the ocean. It's like nobody has coverage out there because it's literally a Native American reservation, and they do not permit cell phone towers to be built. So I'm kind of out of luck as far as cell service goes. And before we just completely get off Ting, I just wanted to say that's actually one of the things I find very refreshing about Ting, is because I'm only paying for what I use, and I ended up living in an area that doesn't have cell service. I don't end up paying for that time when I don't have coverage. So even though I'm in a remote location, I'm not paying for like 800 minutes that I might use, and I'm not paying for like 15 gigs of data I may need that month, or whatever it is. Like I'm only paying for when I use it, which to me,
yeah, there's an opportunity cost that a lot of people don't realize. If you know, Verizon, AT&T, whatever, they're not giving you 5 gigs of free data. You're paying for that 5 gigs of free data. It's just if you don't use it, then there's no additional cost. And if you go over that, then there's an additional overage cost.
Right. Yeah. Ting just makes it simple. So go to last.ting.com, and a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. We'll get to Jason's email next week, because I was between our app picks. There's a lot of good stuff to cover though, so we had to get into all of that. And I really like that sleep app. All right, so let's jump into the news. And I wanted to start with a story that I think it's something that's important we don't lose track of, even though it's kind of a downer. And that's Ars Technica's write-up they did over here at a 7-month later look at Valve's Steam machines, which to them they say look dead in the water. And I kind of agree. I mean, there's not a lot of buzz going on about these Valve Steam machines. And at first I thought, well, these are 1.0 products, but I would expect you got to iterate fast in this marketplace, at least I think. So it looks like, according to some back-of-the-napkin math they've done, which take this math with big old grains of salt, they project about 500,000 sales. About 500,000 sales. So it's been about 7 months since Valve officially got into the hardware business with its Steam machines, a line of Linux-powered gaming console PC hybrids paired with a unique dual touchpad Steam controller. That's from ours. Today, we're getting our first concrete glimpse of the impact the hardware has had on the wider market for gaming machines, and the numbers don't look good for Valve. Now, here's how they got the math, I think. As part of an update on the new Steam controller functions, Valve announced it has sold over 500,000 Steam controllers. Now, that's since November. They confirmed to ours that this number includes controllers that were packaged with every branded Steam machine that was sold through Valve's store. So if you put it together and you look at some of the math, they say there has been less than 500,000 Steam machines sold over a span of more than half a year. Which is probably accurate. 500,000 might not sound like a bad sales number for a brand new hardware platform, which is probably what Noah's thinking right now, but it starts to look pretty tepid in the context of a wider gaming market. Both the PlayStation 4 and Xbone sold over 1 million consoles in their first day on the market in 2013.
You know, I think the reason for this is that there is no exclusivity inside of the Steam box. I think that is really where the issue is. So if I think about all the people that I know that lined up to buy the whatever the Microsoft thingy is and whatever the Sony thingy is, they do so because there is a specific game that they want to play, or a specific series of games that they want to play that are only available on that platform. And if you think about what the Steam box is in and of itself, you're essentially paying for a gaming PC that's put into a home theater case and then upcharged because somebody else built it for you and is selling it. And I don't know what the target audience is for that.
I'm not 100% sure that characterization is true.
Okay, where is the target audience? Because the PC gamer, the traditional PC gamer...
No, what I mean is, I think it actually is more of an appliance-like experience than either you and I...
Who wants that?
Well, console gamers do.
Okay, so all right, so follow me on this. Console gamers want that experience. So what console games are not already available on the consoles that people are already familiar with and already have bought into and all that good stuff? What games are better on the Steam machine than they are on any other console, or available only on the Steam machine and not on another console?
I would argue there's a lot more interesting and fun games that I enjoy playing on Steam than there are on consoles. I don't own any of the
But
modern.
you're not a console gamer.
Right. Exactly.
But
so
you just said that the target audience is console gamers.
Oh, I follow you. So I guess let me refine that, because you're right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is people who want a really simple console-like appliance experience. So for me, if I say I wanted to get, here's the scenario where a Steam machine makes sense for me instead of something I would just build myself. I want to get something for the kids, number one.
Okay.
Or number two, I want to have something at home that is very simple to use. So if we look at the clock and we say, hey, you know what, we got 45 minutes before we got to leave. Let's kill some time playing games, kids. I want to press a couple of buttons and I want us to be playing games. I don't want any other experience than that, and I want that 100% of the time. I had issues where my Chromecast this weekend just quit working. I don't know why. Everything was online, the Wi-Fi was working, and yet my phone could not see the Chromecast. And I had a video I wanted to play that I just simply couldn't show the kids because, for whatever reason, at that point in time, both devices on the same Wi-Fi network, both devices recently rebooted as a troubleshooting, and neither one of them can see each other. And even that, which gets so close to that appliance-like feature set, wasn't close enough, because then,
Right.
1 out of 5 times now I've gone to use the Chromecast, it hasn't worked, and that's too high of a failure rate. So if Valve has truly nailed this, I plug this box in, I put power in, Ethernet, and HDMI, and I press a power button and it comes up with a wizard, I answer some questions, I'm in big picture mode, and now all those games I love on my machine, including the ones I'm playing over Link, are now available on my TV. And I think if that sounds appealing to you, if something easy that's shareable with the family, and you prefer games on the PC platform, then I think a Steam machine makes sense.
I don't think that that audience exists, or at least not at any scale. A audience that wants a pre-built machine that also likes to play, because by the very nature of being a PC gamer and liking the games that are on the PC gaming platform, by that very nature, most of those people want to build and customize their own machines, and most of those guys could care less about a buy pre-built box that is already configured appliance like deal. In fact, really what you're describing to me sounds more like a Steam Link. I'm a gamer. I have a box. It's really powerful. I put a lot of time, money, effort, customization into it. And now I just want to let my kids play Race to the Sun on the TV.
Yeah.
That seems like a really,
I agree. That was where I was going to go with this. I think the Steam Link is probably the product we should look at. I think that's the one that's selling. And I think that's a really good point, because I think the Steam Link turns out to be more competitive than the Steam machine
at its current iteration. But take this: let's say Valve goes all out and approaches a AAA title and says, we want you to release the next version of your game, or somehow sign some sort of an exclusivity agreement with them where that is only available on the Steam machine.
Valve says they're not going to do that, though.
I know they're not, and that's good for them. Good for them for not trying to. But if they did that, that's, I think, how you would start to get people over there.
The chat room's kind of following my line of thinking on this, because I think this could happen, what you're saying, organically. Valve doesn't even have to push the buttons. I hope, and I don't know, but it's possible that Steam VR could be a killer feature that the consoles just can't keep up with. And if the Steam VR ecosystem and the games around Steam VR and all of the cool applications of it benefited from the open nature of a PC platform, i.e. add-in cards, extra slots for sensors, extra headset support, high-speed Ethernet so you can do great video conferencing in VR, multi-core Intel CPUs. If these kinds of things turns out to be major wins for VR applications, and VR turns out to be actually a thing that people in the consumer market want, then I think the Steam machines could be really well positioned. But that's a big what if kind of scenario that, who knows? May never happen.
There is an argument to be made there, because the overhead to implement something like that because basically what they're doing is they're letting the PC industry do all their heavy lifting for them, right? And then they just implement these things inside of a box. And so Valve as a company really doesn't have to do a whole lot other than just track what the industry is doing and then implement those things. That's going to be much more difficult on the Xbox or the PS4 because it's a custom operating system, it's a custom box, and like you said, it's a huge product. It's not really built for any sort of expandability. They're using PC parts, right? So I think that is a viable path. I just think that's pretty niche, and that a lot of hopes and prayers have to come through for that to happen.
All right, so let's talk real talk here for a moment, Noah. 7 months later, Valve Steam machines look dead in the water. That's the headline. I think I might have said, if Steam machines and Valve just completely flop, and this goes a direction where Valve says, I don't think we're doing this anymore. We're going to pull out of Steam machines. We're still going to invest in Linux to run our link. We'll keep the Steam OS, the Steam client around for the Linux desktop. If developers want to target that, good on you. We really appreciate that, but it's just not going to be a feature or a platform that's a featured focus for us. We're going to go back to what works for us. Is that a nuclear bomb being dropped on Linux gaming for every news story that'll be spun from that? Every developer every developer that never wrote a Linux game will say, "See, that's why. Told you all. I told you so. That's why. You see, this is why you can't have nice things." And won't this be just a disaster?
Yeah, no, I agree that it will get spun out of control, especially, man, geez. But I'm not entirely convinced that I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a nuclear bomb on Linux, if only because I think the people that were in the Linux marketplace when Steam came to Linux, I highly doubt any of them were doing that predicated on this idea that the Steam box is going to fundamentally shift the entire gaming revolution over to these Linux-powered gaming rigs. I think people like me and you were hoping for that, but I don't know that game developers necessarily care. I think they try to stay a little bit agnostic. However, I do think that what you're talking about, how all these places are going to pick up and say, "I told you so. See, that didn't work. See, this is prima facie evidence of why nobody should ever develop games on Linux." I think that is absolutely going to happen, and that's a real shame because, as I think we can all agree, this is a chicken or the egg thing, right? Developers don't put their apps on Linux because they say there aren't any users and it won't get picked up, and developers or users and there's no people on Linux because their games aren't there, and we just go around in this vicious cycle.
I wanted to touch on a couple of trends too that I've been noticing in the news before we get out of here. Before we move completely off Valve, we should mention that the Steam controller is on sale right now. Just kind of good timing on their part, I guess. $34.99 on Amazon at the moment. So if you guys want to pick one up, we don't have an affiliate anymore, but you can go search for the Steam controller, and might as well pick one up. I have one over here. It's not bad. Have you played with it? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I played with it at System76, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not so bad. So I wanted to talk about something that's not directly Linux related. Here, can you see it in this shot there? But you've been noticing this. It's been happening to friends and family of mine. It's been happening to people in our audience. Windows 10, when it was in the early release phase, the hype was so strong for Windows 10. When we did our review, I almost felt like I was trying to de-spin some of the excitement that was coming out of the Silicon Valley journalists. It felt unfounded. Where's Cortana now? Remember all of the talk about Cortana? Remember what a big deal Cortana was? And nobody's using Cortana. But this...
So the people that don't... hold on a second. The people that don't know that they inadvertently turned it on, those people are using Cortana.
This story really got me. You probably saw it. It's been all over the web. And I want to talk about it in the context of how it may be bringing people to Linux, but I'll just give you the parameters first. This is a post on Reddit. I live in Central African bush. We pay for slow satellite internet per megabyte download. Just one of our computers, has secretly downloaded 6 gigabytes for Windows 10. We track and coordinate anti-poaching rangers in the field with these PCs and GPS. F you, Microsoft! And they went into an AMA. It caused them quite a bit of problems. And they said they were completely livid about the issue. Wow. So aside from the fact that they pay per megabyte and they already have a slow connection as it is, if a forced upgrade had happened and crashed our PCs while in the middle of coordinating rangers under fire from armed militarized poachers, blood could have literally been on Microsoft's hands. I just came here recently to act as their pilot, but I have IT skills as well. The guy who set these PCs up didn't know how to prevent it or that it had a metered connection. I'm completely livid. That's got to be switching people.
Good. That's what you get when you use Windows. Good. I'm kidding. But the reality is that this kind of attitude of like, we know better than you do, and so this is what you want. I have been, the amount of Windows PCs that we support are slim to begin with, and of those clients agreed when we onboarded them that they would let us make the decisions about their IT infrastructure. And so, as we're slowly moving those people off of those boxes, and even at that scale, this has been a nightmare. It wasn't actually this week that it was a nightmare, but like 2 weeks ago. Just unbelievable. It would try to start this update, and if you tried to cancel it, it would create this box and say that you stopped the Windows 10 upgrade, you need to continue. And there was no way to get out of that box. The box is just there. And so I later found out there are some tools that you can go through and clear. What we ended up doing was just blowing the machines away and redoing, putting them back on 7, and then just shutting off Windows updates temporarily until we could install all these patches to keep. But it is a nightmare. It is unbelievable to me. It is comical and unbelievable to me that people look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me how funny they think it is that we put Linux into production inside of businesses because Windows is so much better suited. That's funny.
I will just touch on this briefly because I mentioned it too much. But one of the main advantages to people who need predictability out of the tool that is their computer, one of the main advantages to Linux and open source is that you have insight into the roadmap. And secondary, and I think this is the big thing you can drill home to people if they're thinking about trying Linux. There's no strategy tax. Microsoft is simply forcing this Windows 10 upgrade down everyone's throat, so that way their numbers look good and they're not competing with their previous versions. Redmond hates competing with their previous versions. That's exactly what the problem is here. This is something that is internalized in them. They hate it. They hate the fact that the most popular versions of the software they're competing with are their own previous versions of Windows. So they get people to upgrade. They have the new platform features. They have new security features. They have all of the things that make Windows 10 ready for the next decade. And so everybody has to be on Windows 10. This is a strategy tax, and this is not something most Linux suffers from. There are certain distributions, you could argue, that certainly suffer from strategy taxes, but as a whole ecosystem, this is where Linux is way better, and this gives you long-term predictability for a platform.
They still have people on XP, and they begrudgingly drove those people off of XP onto 7. Right. Now they're begrudgingly dragging those people off of 7 onto 10. And here's
not
what's
like
funny.
7. It's not like 7 is going to support expires tomorrow. They got years of support left.
Here's what's interesting to me is that first they tried to offer this as an upgrade for free. So we won't charge you at Windows 10. Okay, that just tells you how desperate Microsoft is to get those people on 10 to begin with. And then when that didn't work, they went, hey guys, Windows 10 is such a great operating system, it's mandatory.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so last week we talked about ownCloud and some of the troubles there. This week, Nextcloud was announced, and ownCloud announced it was closing its U.S. offices. Major stories around all of this. So instead of covering it here in the news segment, we thought it'd be best to go right to the horse's mouth. So we've brought on Frank and Jos to discuss what's going on with ownCloud and Nextcloud. So let's go chat with them. That's all the news for this week. Last week, we covered some upset going on at ownCloud, and during the week, big announcements came out about a brand new project, a fork of ownCloud called Nextcloud. And two of the people behind that project are joining us right now to tell us all of the inside scoops, details, and questions you have been asking. So before we go to them, I want to thank Linux Academy. Please go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged to get our discount and support this show. Linux Academy has a whole range of courses, from really deep courses that are hours and hours long with comprehensive study guides, virtual servers that spin up on demand, testing you can do in real time. Also, on the other side of the spectrum, they have nuggets. Tiny bits of sparky, wonderful, sparkly wisdom from experienced sysadmins and DevOps. Just real quick deep dives into wow, they even have some Azure on Linux stuff now. Holy smokes. Look at that. It is 2016. Go over to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and check them out. They have 2,466 videos with their self-paced courses that have audio and PDF downloads, nice guides, scenario-based labs. Instructor mentoring is available, which is great for this type of courseware, and graded server exercises. That is one of my favorite features. They got great courseware on all of the Red Hat stuff. DevOps, that's like a gray category, like a nebulous, like going to the Mutara Nebula and hoping that Khan can't detect your sensors and is only using two-dimensional thinking. You go into DevOps and you think like Spock. You go three-dimensional. They got Android development, PHP, Python, OpenStack, Ruby, Amazon Web Services, which is its own beast. And did I say Android? Because I just did. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go check them out. Thanks to everybody who supports the show by visiting that. And anything really we've ever talked about, we're talking about today, hosting your own server instance of your own data. Guess what? All the technology that ownCloud and Nextcloud use is built on technology stacks you can learn about right at Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. So we brought Frank and Jos on, and the first question I had for them is, hey guys, welcome to the show, and what should I actually say, which organization, what group are you from now?
Yeah, sure. So as you might have heard, Nextcloud is something that is the result of a fork, basically, or reboot of ownCloud. So several or most of the core engineers of ownCloud, the company, but also a big part of the community, we forked ownCloud into a new project and also a new company. So to answer your question, it's both called Nextcloud. So it's a combination of both. The company is something that is a new company. It's set up or run or funded by a good friend of mine, long-term friend of mine, Nils Mache. He's one of the co-founders of Red Hat Germany at the time, and nowadays he's running Spreed.me, an open source WebRTC-based system. So maybe in the future we can actually use a free software for
absolutely
for a call like that. Would be nice.
So Frank, can I ask you, was he involved with ownCloud too, or is this his first involvement with this project?
No, this is new.
Well, the box that they
sell. That's true. Yeah, he was actually also selling or building and selling a box called a Spreed box, and this contains ownCloud for a long time. So that's true. Yes, some involvement in the community.
So we actually report on this in December that so Spreed, open source WebRTC based video conferencing, basically open source Skype. And they created this box. They did that via a Kickstarter that was successful to create this really cool looking aluminum cube, which in it has, little board, a Raspberry Pi-like device. It's something else. I think it's an Odroid. And that runs ownCloud and Spreed. So the idea is like if you're working together with other people, conference call, or you're giving a training or something, you need to be able to also show files and share files and work together on stuff. And that's why they integrated ownCloud.
So I want to ask, just so we have everybody who's watching follow along, what happened to ownCloud, Frank? I think you were there for, was it 8 years or so? Jos, I think you've been there for, at least a year, I think? I can't remember. What happened and why Nextcloud?
So just quickly, maybe to finish the answer to the earlier question, but Nextcloud is actually also a community. So it's something that is also a big open source community, and we guess, looking at the response we get, which is a lot. And this is also like an independent community. In the future, will be run by an independent foundation, which holds the trademark and is really, really independent. So, but to your question about ownCloud, I founded ownCloud like a little bit over 6 years ago, co-founded the company a little bit over 4 years ago. Jos is working together with me on community stuff, so it's all good. I mean, we had a nice. It's really successful. I mean, the latest numbers where we have like 1,000 contributors contributing to that. So it's really nice. Obviously, ownCloud is a nice product nowadays. So it's all good. Unfortunately, there are also a few things that were not so perfect. A few things that we think we can improve, make better. And this is like, for example, with Nextcloud, we want to do that. And this is like, for example, we will kill the contributor license agreement. I think this is a big one.
The CLA?
The CLA, yes. So there will be no CLA. So there's a lot of feedback we got from people saying, this is a great project, but I don't want to sign a CLA because, right, there's a lot of controversial discussions in the open source space about CLAs, if they're good or bad. And we think that it's good to have no CLA.
Sure.
And also like the full development, the planning and all the roadmap and then all all the basically the process, everything will be in the open. This is also something we want to make better. And as I said before, we will create an independent foundation which holds the trademark. So it's really like a bit better balance between the community and the company as before.
Can I? Go ahead, Jos.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize this isn't just about making, doing better on purely open source, kumbaya side of things. The thing is that, this will also allow us to do a better job for customers and users. The thing is, we want to build an ecosystem, like OpenStack, multiple companies working together, or Linux kernel itself, so that you can actually do everything as a whole community that people want and need, and do it all properly, rather than being limited by what some investors for one company understand, right? Rather than having one company being the limiting factor,
Jos, are you saying that you feel that this new arrangement is sort of removing restrictions that was forcing you not to maybe handle a customer situation the way you want? Am I tracking? Is there a certain
calendar and the contacts app? Yeah, these apps were super popular, not only with users, but we also had customers asking and saying, look, we want support for these apps. Yeah. But that is hard to explain in certain venture capital.
Right. Okay. No, I want to give you a chance to jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you talk about, Nextcloud is going to follow a different roadmap. And are there specific technical issues that you are aware of from ownCloud that are going to be changed in Nextcloud?
Well, I don't know if you want to call them technical issues, but it's a bit in a similar direction as Jos said. There's just, I think with ownCloud, we were a little bit we were put into a box called Enterprise File Sync and Share, which is like a category that exists like between analysts and venture capital areas and with customers. But I think we can do a lot more, like as Jos said, with calendar and contacts. But another thing I want to mention is like the SpreadMe integration itself. So Niels Mache, our partner here, as I mentioned before, obviously has this open source project called SpreadMe, this open source Skype, basically. And this is also something that we are going to integrate into Nextcloud. So in Nextcloud, you will have like full video conferencing and chat and call functionalities. And this is one of the things which I find interesting, because I don't care if this is something that usually fits into a product like that. It just makes sense. It's like we hear this from users that want to do that. The same with the calendar. Are we groupware? No, we're not really groupware, but it makes sense to have a calendar in there. So I don't know if this answers your question about technical changes, but we want to basically broaden the goal and direction a bit, because as you said, with this ecosystem, it's a platform. This is why it's so important. A lot of people can contribute, and they can build all kind of different functionalities and things on that to build something that is really, really useful.
So as you guys are reading the reaction, I mean, you've probably seen some of the reaction that I've seen, and some of that is, well, great, this is a chance to reboot. Let's get rid of PHP. Let's drop C-Sync, and let's go whole hog with something new. And that's not really what this is about, though. And do you guys want to address that at all? Because I have seen that as a common point. So
very, very important for us, very, very important, probably the most important thing is a smooth transition. And this is the same for the contributors, for the users, but also the customers who will use like the professional version of that in the enterprise. Because of that, we will not like tomorrow change everything. Definitely not, because this would mean a complete break, and then nothing works for a few years, and then we put those pieces together, and maybe in the future it's better or not. I think this is a bad idea. So it will be a smooth transition, which means in the first few days and weeks, it probably looks a lot similar than ownCloud. But the thing is, as I said before, with the open process, that more people can bring in ideas and features and can pull requests more open and so on. Well, then who knows, right? I mean, that's
sure.
The sky is the limit. If someone wants to do complete architectural change Obviously, in open source, the rule is who codes decides, right? So if someone comes in and contributes a huge architectural change, of course, that's possible.
I wanted to ask you guys about...
have some concrete ideas, actually. I mean, there has been already some blogs about that. For example, I think it's important, if you want what we want to do, which is build an ecosystem, you need to make sure that the fundamentals are right, as in stable and reliable. So one of the things, for example, we want to address, which is a sticking point for a lot of users and customers and contributors, is the upgrade process. And there's a blog post on, you can go to nextcloud.com/news. You'll find a blog post there that addresses basically a number of issues that we have with the updating process that we want to address. And rather than focusing on the last things that look good for, again, in the old setup, let me put it that way, we can now get a lot of these fundamentals right and spend some time and effort on these things.
So Jos, I wanted to ask you about the way some of this went down publicly, and how much of that is sort of a slippery slope, because you want to sort of give an air of confidence to people who want to migrate to Nextcloud. So it started by seeing several key people leaving, obviously yourself and Frank leaving, and then a bunch of other people leaving. And very quickly, it seemed like you guys moved very, very much, I would say, nimbly to get Nextcloud up and running. How much of that is because you're really trying to hit the ground running and move over to something clean, versus a lot of people are interpreting it as there's something they're not telling us here. There's a big secret here. Can you give us any light on the process of how this went down and why it went down that way?
I don't know. I don't know there's any big secret or conspiracy or anything. It's just that some people, including Jos and me, but it's, as we mentioned before, it's actually a significant part of our core developer community, just thought that, this can be done better.
We've been trying to change these things for a long time. And at some point, you've been running in the wall for so long that you say, okay, this doesn't work. And things weren't getting better, let me put it that way. So we had good reasons to leave. I just don't think it is nice to make this personal.
Were you surprised by how hard the response was from ownCloud? They say that today's announcement by former colleague Frank was as that he intends to launch a competitive product to ownCloud into a market using recently poached developers, because developers are game that you can poach, and that has surprised us and disappointed us. They go on to say that as a response, their creditors are laying off their U.S. staff effective immediately. Very, very fast chain of events, very strongly worded, some might say bitter post, and I'm curious your thoughts on that, and if this was expected as sort of an unfortunate fallout of this.
So, in a way, yes and no. I mean, as you said before, it was clear that a lot of things were not great. So it was foreseeable that something is not going into the right direction there, and this is also why we decided to reboot that. The fact that it happened so fast was a surprise, yes. But I mean, it was clear, and as you said, I think it's good style to go into details, but it just, things didn't work out in the area as we thought it would. So it was, again, as I said before, a few things were basically going, just not great.
Now, I saw a series of tweets from you where you expressed that you were surprised at the fragileness of the situation, but also you seem to imply that there may be a solution for some of those. Is that still something that's on track?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. It's actually that what we are trying to do here, this is not just a hobby project of a few volunteers. I mean, hopefully also a hobby project and fun and also volunteers, but not only. So we actually were able, as I said before, with our partner, were able to basically have a really good foundation of that, put it under basically a good solid structure behind it, so that we're actually able to, if someone wants to work full-time on Nextcloud, that we actually have significant funds to make this possible. And this is basically, the case for our ex-colleagues, but also for completely new people. So we have the funds of basically hire a significant number of full-time people to push Nextcloud forward. So we're in a good position here. So we hope that
That's good. That's great. That is
the smooth transition is the most important thing.
It's also for colleagues, right?
Yeah,
we never meant people to end up on the street. We want to reboot.
Yes.
Do things different and better. Build something that's less fragile. This time we have something that is a lot more solid.
Yeah.
That is not continuously on the edge, but has a serious somebody with a long-term vision here. Right? Niels has been doing this for a long time, running Spreed earlier than, as Frank said, Red Hat Germany. And Spreed is a very healthy company already, and it's doing really, really well.
That's great.
Right? And we're gonna work with that and grow together with that.
That's reassuring to hear. So okay, I want to, before we zoom out completely about all of this, I want to ask you about what I see as really the long-term problem you're going to face. And that is this seems like a storm that will pass, and the cards are likely going to fall in the direction of Nextcloud because it seems to be an obvious choice. But that's amongst us, those of us who know. But when I look out at the general trends, one of the things that's definitely impressed me about ownCloud, there's only a few open source projects that really reach the status is damn near average consumer level knowledge. Not quite that level of penetration, but every single VPS out there has a one-click deployment of ownCloud. Every distribution has a guide on how to install ownCloud. There's a solution everywhere. And, I took a look at the Google Trends, which, take them for what they are. But holy smokes, you guys, starting about mid-2011 until right up till now, ownCloud is on fire. That is trending like almost no other open source project. So how now will you manage to get some of the mind share from the name and the brand and just the trust with the words ownCloud over to Nextcloud?
I think at the end of the day, and when I will be involved in open source for a long time, at KDE at the time, in Jos's case in OpenSUSE, I think at the end of the day, you get this momentum with a great product. I think if you have a great product, then you have happy users. If you have a user, you have a lot of contributors. If you're a company, maybe you have customers. And then you also have this Google Trends chart. And it all boils down to a great product. And this is, I think, we're in the best position to do that because we have the core people. We have the core people on board. And actually, another thing I wanted to mention is that we got such an overwhelming response the last few days. It's just amazing. From people who really, really like this idea. And this comes from users. Obviously, they're asking us, hey, okay, this is great. Where can I download it? And then, okay, it's just 2 days old, but okay. And then also from contributors, talking about 2 days, we already have people contributing to it. We already have people building like virtual machines around it, building like porting the news apps over. And there's lots of people who really want to contribute, and also from customers. They come to us and say, hey, this all sounds great. All the things that we mentioned before that are better. Basically, we want to work with you guys. So we're actually really seriously blown away by that. Yeah. And because of that, we were actually wanted to move faster forward than what we planned in the past. I think when we announced it on Thursday, we published a plan which said, okay, we will do the first release in early July. But the way it looks like, all the stuff that's already coming together, and as a lot of the contributors, we actually think that we can have the first Nextcloud release this month.
Hey!
Just a few weeks.
Wow, that is some good momentum.
And this is not the first release. I mean, there's already so much planned with the video integration, with the calendar contact integration, and so many ideas, and people are already working on that. Mm-hmm. And I think we have such a great and honestly better product very soon, and I hope you can also then see this in the Google Trends chart.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I look forward to trying it. Jos, I had a question specifically to you while we're sort of on the topic of momentum for a new open source product or project. There's a lot of good indicators here. And I think something that maybe the audience might appreciate is if we zoomed out just for a moment and talked about both of your open source background. But Jos, why don't we start with you, just so we get some context. I mean, this isn't really your first rodeo. This isn't the first time you've been working on an open source project. Both of you have experience here. But Jos, you give us a little bit of your experience and also how, forks like this happen in that context, that kind of stuff.
Well, there are, of course, some other projects that have gone through similar things, right? I mean, the very well-known examples, of course, LibreOffice. And I already talked to people there, right, from Collabora, about their experiences and how that went. And they pointed me to the Google Trends chart comparing Apache OpenOffice and just OpenOffice with LibreOffice, pointing out how hard it is, of course, to get this right. Now, of course, OpenOffice stuck around because it was put under the Apache Foundation, and it's still there, right? If you go to Apache to OpenOffice, you will still find that. You will find no indication that there's basically that you're looking at a pretty much dead project, and that there's another one that's actually moving forward with a better product, as Frank mentioned. So this is, of course, not a super easy ride. At the same time, LibreOffice also shows that it works, right? I mean, there's a huge community around it, a lot of people working on it, and this is the ecosystem thing again that I mentioned, multiple companies contributing to it and building something great together, right? There's business there, and it's working. So Google Trends, it shows on one hand how hard it is, but at the same time, it's working.
Trends change, right? So Frank, a little insight, Frank, into, so you've been with ownCloud for a while. You've been involved with projects before ownCloud. Could you give us a little taste of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing open source for I don't know how long. It must be close to 20 years now, maybe 18, 19 years. So I got involved relatively early in KDE. At the beginning, I was just, I don't know, user, and then followed the mailing list and so on. And I got more and more involved into it and did, like, I don't know, event organization and artwork and small fixes here and there. And then also I built an open desktop org network. Maybe some of you know kdloop.org or gnomeloop.org. I did this for, I don't know, also over 10 years, long time. 15 years, I think, long time. And I did that, and I also always tried to build like great open source, basically ideas, projects. I founded an open PC project, something not very, well, it was an interesting idea, and other companies do this now, but at the time for this community, for this project, wasn't super successful. But I always tested different things and learned over time. And well, obviously with ownCloud and then now with Nextcloud, I think this is something which is just important. Yeah. It's more, for me, it's more than open source. It's also about privacy and security and keeping your own data under control.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I want to ask you then, with those backgrounds and like you just said, the importance of ownCloud, where you can really be the master of your own data, and the popularity and recognition of ownCloud, this seems like it's going to be definitely a blip on the history of open source radar, this particular fork. I think long term, this is going to be kind of a big deal. And I'm kind of curious what you guys think about the overall long-term ramifications for open source.
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, I mean, you see a lot of companies trying to do open source and a lot of different business models, right? I mean, I talked recently about this stuff with the guys who do Jenkins, Open Source Bees or something. I don't remember their name, but you know, these guys have also tried multiple business models, right? And I mean, there's GitLab, for example. They're trying these things. A lot of different companies are trying a lot of different business models and to make this work. I mean, you have the Qt company that's doing Qt now. You have Collabora, of course, that's working on LibreOffice, and a lot of other companies are doing that too. And on one hand, you know, if you're looking for the $10 billion payout, you know, for the next Bill Gates, I don't think open source is an easy way of getting there. Let me put it that way. I mean, there's a $1 billion company, right? Red Hat. And a lot of people are being skeptical and saying, you know, look, you know, with open source, okay, Red Hat, sure, they managed to do it, but nobody else is going to do this. This is not going to work. It's a business model that is just too hard to get right. And I get that, but it depends on what you're trying to do. If you are genuinely trying to build a sustainable, healthy company, I think it's possible, because it is a business model that suits a long-term vision. You need to have a long-term vision to make it work. Yeah? If you don't have that, you're going to get in trouble some years down the line. You're going to be forced to make decisions that harm your customers and your users just to keep investors happy. You're going to be forced to make decisions that benefit your sales and, forcing, for example, customers to buy stuff by not putting it in the open source edition, right? Short-term decisions that harm, in the end, your ecosystem and, in the end result, which is the longevity of your company.
Let me explain this the same thing maybe with a few different words. I think that's a great point. If you said, as I said earlier, if you want to be the next Bill Gates, right? It's like then, and it's also obviously this incentive of certain, I don't know, CEOs, venture capitalists, whatever, right? If the main goal is to become the next Bill Gates, then what you have to do is you have to keep all your properties under your control. You have to own the trademark, you have to own the code, you have to own the customer relations. You have to be the only one who is doing enterprise apps, the only one who is providing support, and so on and so on. And you have to maximize basically your own the IP and all the value of your enterprise. And it's interesting, and this is obviously what Microsoft did, right? And obviously, Bill Gates is obviously freaking rich. But interesting enough, there's, I think nowadays, an even bigger business, right? Which is like the Linux ecosystem, right? I mean, this is like half of the machines, like all the phones and servers, everything running Linux now. And the incentive of Linus Torvalds was not to own everything. In fact, well, I think he owns the trademark, but it's not loosely protected. But beside that, he actually owns nothing. But what he did, he built an ecosystem. There have lots of companies contributing it. There's Google building phones on it, and Red Hat selling enterprise servers, and so on and so on. It's an ecosystem. And this, at the end, can be a lot bigger. And I think it's very likely to be a lot bigger, but compared with something that's only owned by one company. Maybe, I don't want to compare ourselves either with Linus Torvalds nor with Bill Gates, but I think opening this up to more partners, to more people, helps everybody at the end.
Is that a way of saying this is not going to be a dual licensed project? This is going to be a single licensed project?
Correct. Yes, we're killing the CLA. So, which means it's basically run in the same way as a normal open source project where there is like shared ownership.
No exclusivity for the company. No special unique position. I mean, obviously, the thing is, we are confident that we can give the best customer support because we have excellent people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Yes. Big part of the code. But that is and always will have to be our only thing. No exclusivity on the trademark for commercial use or other shenanigans just because you're not secure about, your business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you are certain about, and this is what I was trying to say, if you are trying to build an open source company, you need to find other partners who understand this and are confident, like you, in this, and are willing to open up and build an ecosystem because a rising tide, lifts all boats.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is the vision you need to have. And if you don't have that, if you have people on board, investors on board who don't get that, you're not going to make it. That's how I would put it.
Man, guys, that makes me super excited for the future of the project. I cannot wait to watch where Nextcloud goes. We're going to have to try it out here on the show and talk about it. So stay in touch, keep us in the loop, and best of luck. If people want to check out the project, maybe get involved, is there a website you want to point them to?
Nextcloud.com.
There you go.
Go check it out.
Jos, Frank, thank you guys very much, and look forward to seeing you guys at a fest soon.
All right.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But hey, Noah, before we get out of here, we have some great emails, some that I will answer to from last week's behavior. And we have our segment sponsor, System76 at System76.com. This is where you go to get machines you don't have to futz with. Noah was just complaining on the live stream about all of the issues that with Secure Boot and all of that stuff when he just has that spontaneous machine that someone's bought at Best Buy. Like, hey, Noah, can you help me with this? Sure, let's grab that. Oh, you got the Intel Compute Stick? Okay, that was us that time. Let's give that a try. And then it's Secure Boot just ruins everybody's fun. System76, it's not just that, though. They make great machines, laptops, desktops, and servers. The desktops, I think, are phenoms. I've had only, like 3 of them which for some of you might seem like a lot, but they make so many great machines, in my opinion. I think they should just send me all of the machines, all of them, especially the fast ones, all of them. So to me, it's not a lot. And Noah over there, he's got himself the Oryx, which is a desktop killer of a laptop. And you know who else recently got an Oryx? Was Mr. Leo Laporte, and he talked about it recently on the Screensavers this weekend.
I bought it for is my day-to-day show computer on the table, and what I wanted was a big screen. It's 17 inches. It's only 1080p, but that's fine. I want the text to be big. I want it to be legible. It's an IPS LCD screen, so it looks good, and it runs Linux beautifully. Although, if you join me, I'm running the GNOME operate desktop on here, GNOME 3, and if you join me for the unboxing on Wednesday, you might be surprised to hear me singing this computer's praises because it wasn't working so very well when I took it out of the box. I did the OEM sign up, and then I did something that I think is user error, but Linux allows you a lot of scope for user error. I installed the GNOME desktop because I don't like Unity, and it asked me, and this is a very Linuxy thing to do, it asked me, well, all right, you now have two login managers. You have LightDM and you have GDM3. Which would you like to use? Without any hint that there was a bad choice, and I chose the bad one. I chose GDM3. I eventually thrashed the system, wasn't able to boot into it. And then, and this was a real frustration, the nice thing about Linux, if you thrash a system, you make a USB key, you reboot.
Before he goes on, I really like that he really gave this a try. Like, he troubleshot the heck out of this, and he manages to pull it back. Here, I'll let him finish.
Wipe it, you start over again. It's probably the fastest install of any of the big three operating systems, much faster than Windows and OS
Good for
10.
him.
It just takes a couple of minutes and you start over. I set it up, as many Linux users do, so that I have all of my configuration files on GitHub. So it's a very easy thing for me to clone them and restore the machine back to its original state. So this would have been a simple thing, except for a massive bug in Ubuntu 16.04, the shipping version of Ubuntu.
Listen to this.
Which, thank you, System76. Their graybeards, who aren't so old, but they are definitely graybeards, said, oh, I know what's happening. There's a kind of obscure bug in Linux, or actually one of the tools that's often used on Linux installs, and certainly used by Ubuntu, that it causes a bad interaction between a Skylake processor and the NVIDIA 980M. Now, that's an unusual combination for most Linux machines. I had never run into it because I'm using older machines. He said, oh, this has been fixed in the latest version of Ubuntu. Just download the daily build 16.04.1.
Listen to that.
And it should all be fixed. And he was right. It did, and it installed, and GNOME's working great.
So I think that was Jason over at System76 that was helping him, and they did a great job. I'm glad Leo had a great experience with it. He's got a powerful machine. Now it'll be interesting to see if there's an Oryx Pro on the table during some of the Twitch shows, like Mac Break Weekly, and I would just love that if that was on his desk during Mac Break Weekly. So it's pretty cool. He's running Ubuntu GNOME edition on there. We love System76, have for a long time, and think you'd have a great time if you want to try them out. And if you do get a little hung out to dry, if Google fails you, they have great support too. So Raphael writes in as a follow-up to our discussion around Oracle versus Google and the licensing of some of that Java APIs. He says, hi there, I'm a fan of Jupyter Broadcasting for some time. I used Entergros for a month as my first long-term Linux desktop. He was previously a Windows 7 user. And I even have a DO droplet for 2 months. My question about Oracle versus Google trial is hard to find, but I'd like to know what the licenses of the different types are. And he goes on to ask about the different licenses, and I want to share some follow-up thoughts because a lot of you wrote in with feedback about my position last week on Oracle versus Google. Just to quickly summarize my position, super quick. I think that I want to make sure it's clear. I do not want the scenario where there's a precedent set that by Oracle that there was some sort of copyright around these APIs that could somehow affect a bunch of other open source projects. Whatever that doomsday scenario is that we're all worried about, I'm not for that. I'm not trying to advocate some doomsday scenario. What I'm simply trying to advocate, or what I'm actually simply trying to ask the question of, I should say, is to me it seems like we have ourselves a pretty clear-cut case. It's going to go to retrial, and Google's probably going to lose, just based on just both companies and negotiations. Now, a lot of you seem to be writing under the assumption when you write in that this is all Oracle's doing, that this is Oracle's evil plan, that Sun was totally okay with all of this, and that this is only happening because Oracle swooped up and bought up all of Sun Microsystems, including Java. I think that's a false pretense or a false assumption to make. I think it's more likely that one of the very valuable assets of Sun Microsystems was the potential of this lawsuit. And one of the reasons Oracle bought Sun, among many other things, was because of this lawsuit's pretty much slam dunk nature. Because everybody's on the record, on both sides, saying they need a license. I'm not saying if that's right or wrong, and I'm not trying to advocate what should or shouldn't happen precedent-wise for APIs in the future. What I'm trying to ask the question, and I'm simply just trying to ask the question, and why I got upset last week is because we're so busy advocating for Google because they claim to be free and open, even though in reality they're an advertising company, one in which I use many of their services. Their primary goal is not open source software. Just look at the deal, for example, they did with Verizon that has now screwed up net neutrality in the US years later. Watch TechSnap if you don't know what I'm talking about. They do not necessarily have the consumer, the general public's best interest at heart here. That's not a crazy position to take, and I'm not even saying it's necessarily right. I'm simply saying that if we come from the position that perhaps Google had ulterior motives here, i.e. we're going to use this and fight it in court later and make enemies along the way, which, by the way, is a direct quote from their emails. Direct quote. If we come from the position that perhaps Google had ulterior motives here, and that they are likely going to lose in a future retrial, if we accept those possibilities, which seem likely to me, then we have to ask the question, what precedent is now set for dual license software? Will any large company come in and say, well, yeah, I kind of ripped them off in some degree, and yeah, internally we all agreed that we were completely copying, but fair use, right? I mean, what would stop Apple from doing that in the future when they need to, say, copy some version of Swift that's been forked or something from Microsoft? What would stop any other large company that has a team of lawyers sitting around tapping their fingers waiting for something to do? It seems to me what Google just proved is even when you get caught with your dick in your hand, you can still get away with it scot-free. You can literally say, we're going to rip this off and then fight them in court later because they're little guys and we're bigger than them. Except for they didn't expect Oracle to come along, who's huge and has a great legal team, which we could argue how great they really are, but from the perspective of industry, has a great legal team. They come up, swoop up Sun, and now they go after Google. You don't think that they saw this all along? See, you have to come at this from a perspective of perhaps Google made a mistake here too. I could be wrong as well. And I wouldn't want any other precedent regarding the copyright of the APIs to be set either. But I feel like that's already been done. If you look at previous precedents and cases, it seems like that's already happened. That's the other thing I don't understand. It seems like that precedent has already been made. So a lot of you wrote in, and a lot of you apparently were extremely disappointed. Apparently I crapped on your front yard and murdered your cat while I was there. And some of you advised not watching this episode of the show or that episode of the show because it was so bad. And I apologize if I upset you about it. However, if you do reply, could we not have a conversation about if the APIs were copywritten or not? Could we go past that point? Because that's what everybody's answering. And could we discuss the possibility of what happens if Google loses this thing ultimately, and what happens if they win this thing ultimately? In regard specifically to dual license projects. It seems like if they lose, it's actually a good thing for dual license projects. And if they win, it seems like a bad thing for dual license projects. And right now, they're in the win column. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but if you could answer that specific part of my question and not actually retread the entire court case and what Google did and what Oracle did, if we could just avoid all of that pretext and specifically discuss that aspect, that's where I would like to get to. And I don't really feel like any of the feedback last week particularly addressed those questions. So that's my extremely long answer to Raphael's question.
So with that, Andrew writes in and he says, hi, Chris and Noah. After seeing your last episode with the low-cost Linux machines here in the UK, I wanted to show you this. And he links us to computerbank.org.au. Computerbank is a non-profit volunteer-run community group in Melbourne, Australia. They take old computers that have been thrown away or donated, wipe them, and breathe new life into them with, you guessed it, a Linux desktop. Then they sell them for as low as $30, $22 US, to refugees, low-income earners, pensioners? I wonder if that's supposed to be prisoners.
No, it's got to be pensioners, right? For people that are on pensions, like retirement.
Okay. Sure. Pensioners, community group, or people or groups who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford this kind of computer.
How much do you love this?
This isn't just for people in Melbourne, but thousands of computers have been shipped across the community to places like Soma, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, where they otherwise couldn't have affordable computers. So, we thought we'd shed a little bit of light onto stuff like this. And, the reality is, if I had more time, I would love to participate.
You would. I know you would.
Or create something. And the thing is, like, I do a really crappy I do like a haphazard version of this.
No, you do like a snipe attack version of this. Like you get,
yeah, where I'll buy a computer and then I'm like, oh, you need a Linux computer? Well, here, have this. Like, that's my iteration of it. It would be great if I could formalize that process. But I think people that do this kind of thing are really cool. So we wanted to shed some light on it. So computerbank.org.au.
Well, here's my plan, Noah. This is a long-term plan, so don't worry. Don't freak out when I say this. But when Airbnb finally destroys the hospitality industry in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and you finally move out here and move into an RV with me in the Pacific Northwest, when we do LUP, we'll do an actual lug, and during that lug, we'll be switching people's. We'll do a meetup where we switch people's computers. So don't worry, you're eventually going to get there. It's just going to be a little bit of a journey first. Our last email is a follow-up to Etcher. Etcher was the app pick last week. Goran J writes and says, hello, Chris and Noah. On the last episode of Last, you mentioned Etcher, a great tool to burn Linux ISOs to USB drives and make them bootable. That's all great, but burn a whole who burns a whole USB for one ISO nowadays? Anyways, it's kind of a waste of a USB. With USB keys being so cheap these days, I want to be able to. Hi, Noah. Hi. What? Hi, Noah.
I do that.
Oh, yeah. It's like you're like, hi. What? You're like waving over there. What's going on? 64 gig USBs and blah blah blah. So it goes. So the main question is: an open source tool out there? Is there an open source tool out there that creates a multi-boot USB that will actually work? I tried some apps like Yumi and Xboot, but some of the ISOs I put on the USB won't boot or give me image not found error. Also, will UEFI prevent such multi-boot loaders to run properly from USB? Your thoughts, Noah? What do you think about this one?
I have not run into anything, but I have not run into anything, and that's kind of why the feedback's there. Is if anyone else knows of anything, we can share it with the group. But so he acknowledges that USB flash drives are inexpensive and readily available. You shouldn't waste them. And then goes up.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was funny too.
You want to have a bunch of ISOs on one? Yeah. Like, why would you want to do that? The thing is, I can buy a 5-pack of USB drives at Best Buy for like $3 or $4.
I'll tell you what about it. Okay, so I'll just answer his question because I'll tell you what I find it annoying.
Oh, you know of something?
Yeah. Well. This little.
Yeah. Okay.
This I've talked about it a long time ago. It's this. I think it's a Zalman. And it's a Zalman USB 3 hard drive, and it's in a nice metal case. This is really well built, actually. And you simply just slide a drive in there. I have a solid state drive because I like it. It's just a old EVO 120 gig. Plenty to throw many ISOs on. Mm-hmm. And you throw the ISOs on the drive, you put them in the sled, and then in the firmware, once the drive gets power, you can select all the ISOs on the LCD screen. You can toggle through all the ISOs on the drive, and then you push down on the little selector, and it shows up to the computer, the host computer, as a USB CD-ROM using that ISO image. And it has the speed of this 120 gig SSD over USB 3.
Right.
This is what I usually tend to do, is try to have the latest crop of ISOs that I'm using. Now, honestly, these days I mostly just load Anagros. But when we're in heavy review season, like we have a new Fedora review coming up, I might actually end up putting on this just because it's faster. Now, because I don't even have to DD it, right? I just simply copy the frickin' ISO image over USB 3, and it copies at like 125 megs a second. So it's super nice. Downside, huge frickin' downside to this Zalman thing. It's for those of you looking, it's the model ZM-VE300. Major downside to the son of a gun. If you want to have files that are larger than 2 gigs, which many ISOs are, the drive has to be formatted in NTFS. That's what the firmware supports.
And also, I believe another little thing that I was reading about those is that it has to be defragged every so often, which can't be done either under Linux. So you either blow it away.
That's what I do. I've formatted this thing many times. Basically, when I'm all done, when I'm all done with that crop of ISOs, I just tend to format it.
You know, if I worked in an industry where I tried a bunch of distros all the time on my machines, that'd be one thing. But frequently what it is, you know, at least in our practice is, hey, I have to run over to XYZ and install CentOS. Hey, I'm going to run over to ABC and I'm going to install a bunch. So I literally have a pack of flash drives. And I just, oh, we need that one. And we just take them different places. And last time I came to Washington, I brought my Antergos drive with me so that if I needed to reload Antergos on anything, we would have it.
Right, you did. You just
I used it
prepared.
twice.
You know, the chat room's talking about a solution where you just use Grub to boot from ISOs. That'd be interesting to play with. I got to look into that too, because that could be. We could do a how-to on that maybe.
It's got to be easy, simple, and straightforward. Because if it's a big, complicated process, I'll just make one last pitch. I really think that we are overcomplicating a very simple problem. Just if you have a couple flash drives, just DD an image onto it, boot off of it.
All right, but put this in your possible how-to list for the future, because I think we need to. We've talked about it before. Netboot.xyz. We've talked about this once before. I think we should potentially do a full tutorial on it. So put that in the bank. Okay. You got it? Netboot.xyz. Boom. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. I will try to put a link to that Zalman drive in the show notes too, if you guys are looking for that. If you have other suggestions for particular to these questions, linuxactionshow.reddit.com and look for episode 420 of The Big Show, and there'll be a feedback thread there. You can also submit content for the show at that subreddit, like news stories or open source projects. We have a big episode planned for, is it next week? It is next week, right?
Huge episode plan, like probably the biggest episode that has ever been aired in the history of JB. So if there was ever a weekend to make it live.
Yeah, I would make it live next week. Yeah.
You know, whatever you have to do, move across the country, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you need to be there live.
It'll be our 10th anniversary, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for the live time in your local time zone. And then jblive.tv is where you watch it, and jblive.fm is where you listen to it if you're on the road or something like that. So we'd love to see you live if you can make it. It'd be a fun episode, and it might just be worth your time. You never know. Linux Action Show will be live every single Sunday from here on out until the end of time. But it is our 10th one next time. Actually, that's not true. We may move it from time to time. I shouldn't say that because everything changes. But you always know at the calendar page.
But yet it stays the same.
jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact is where you go. If you want to send an email into the show, you just choose Linux Action Show from the dropdown. I'm at ChrisLAS, which is kind of a newish account. So if you haven't followed me for a while, go over there and follow me, because I set up a new account at Jupiter Signal for the network, and Mr. Kernel Linux, which is Noah, at Kernel Linux.
That's right. You can see a collection of my USB flash drives, which I just put inside of the...
Yeah, you did. Nice. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
It is so out there. It's just so big.
I should probably get more. You know what? It seems
smoke weed every day.
I think Kernel Linux is a smoker. That's what I think. I just think he only does it there in Grand Forks where they get crazy. All right, here we go.
Smoke weed every day.
I'll be right back. All right.
Okay.
So you just sit there and chat with them about,
GIMP.
Your things that you guys.
Google Mind Control.
Those things that you Linux users talk about.
Smoke weed every day.
I have basically decided, now I kind of thought this before, but I have a whole bunch of ideas on how we can replace your Hughes lights.
Whoa, really? Tell me about this.
Yeah. You could do like way cool.
Out of all of the things, you know what I mean?
know,
like out of all the things, that's not really what I'm.
Yeah, I know. That's true. And I understand that. But because you just use your phone, you don't have to use any nonsense to control it. But I was the other night, the thing that is so cool about all this stuff is I keep coming up with random creative ideas, and then Linux just lets them go right into practice. So I was like, in between this set, I want everything to be the Altispeed colors. So I look up, because we have a very specific shade of orange that we use on the website, and I pull that out and I put that RGB into the computer, and boom, the whole room turns that color. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
That is cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Smoke weed every day.
So Twomp, I will not. I am totally out on any sort of LED light. If I hold on, one thing at a time. Concentrate. No, do not let ADD take over your life. Twomp, I am totally out on any sort of LEDs unless it's DMX compatible, because DMX compatible means I can control it with Linux, and it means that basically I think what it is I really like standardization and modularization, if that's a word. If it's not, I made it up. So if you have like my favorite thing in the world, a great example of this is like rack mount stuff. you get a generic rack that has 6 U's in it, units to mount things in, and the top U could be a switch, or it could be a router, or it could be a punch panel, or it could be a drawer, or it could be a cable manager, or it could be an audio amplifier, or whatever, or a mixer, or a compressor, whatever. Everything is this standard modular unit, and so it allows you to take components out of a totally separate part of my business. I can take stuff out of our DJ rack and come bring it here into the studio where I do the Linux action show and put it into that rack, and I like that modularization. And so they have YouTube video, and so they have DMX allows me I can set everything up inside of software and say I want these lights to do this and these lights to do that and those lights to do this, and then if a light ever breaks or I decide I don't like it, or if I want to upgrade it to a brighter light or whatever it is, I just take that one light out and replace it with a newer, better light. And all of those scenes, everything, all 50 of those scenes, all 50 of those chases, they all still work because it was modular. I could just swap that one part. I love stuff like that.